One day, a man finally bought the car he had dreamed about for 10 years. The day he drove it home, he couldn't stop smiling. He parked it outside his house and kept looking through the window just to admire it. For a few weeks he felt successful, important, like he had finally arrived. A few months later the car became normal, the excitement faded. The smell of a new interior disappeared. The feeling of achievement quietly dissolved into routine, then a new desire appeared, a bigger car, a better house, more money, more recognition. More, always more. Most people spend their entire lives inside this cycle. They are convinced that happiness exists somewhere ahead of them. Just beyond the next purchase, the next promotion, the next relationship, the next achievement. The next version of themselves, and so they keep running, not because they are happy, but because they believe happiness is waiting at the finish line. The tragedy is that when they finally reach that finish line, they discover another one, and another, and another. The race never ends. What makes this even stranger is that many of the people who appear successful often seem deeply dissatisfied. Celebrities battle depression. Millionaires obsess over becoming billionaires. Influencers who receive millions of views spend sleepless nights worrying about becoming irrelevant. People who have achieved everything society told them to pursue somehow still feel incomplete. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a middle-aged janitor whistles while cleaning a hallway. A fisherman laughs with his friends after a long day at sea. An old woman waters flowers in her garden and feels perfectly content. By society's standards, they have very little. Yet they seem happier than people who have everything. Why? This question has haunted philosophers for thousands of years. And strangely enough, one of the most interesting answers may come from a yellow sponge who lives in a pineapple under the sea. At first glance, SpongeBob SquarePants looks like a joke. He lives alone. He works in a fast food restaurant. He has no wealth, no status, no impressive achievements. No ambition to climb social ladders. If LinkedIn existed in Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob's profile would probably look embarrassing. Yet there is something deeply unsettling about him. Because despite having almost nothing that modern society considers success, SpongeBob is happier than nearly everyone around him. The world he lives in is far from perfect. Bikini Bottom is filled with greed, envy, vanity, loneliness, insecurity, and stupidity. Mr. Krabs worships money, Plankton worships power. Squidward worships recognition. Each of them spends their life chasing something they believe will finally make them happy. And yet none of them ever arrive. Mr. Krabs never has enough money. Plankton never gains enough power. Squidward never receives enough admiration. The closer they get to their goals, the further happiness seems to move away. SpongeBob, meanwhile, possesses almost none of the things they desperately pursue. And yet every morning he wakes up excited to be alive. This seems ridiculous, perhaps even childish. Surely happiness cannot be that simple. Surely there must be more to life than flipping burgers, blowing bubbles, and chasing jellyfish. But what if the joke is actually on us? What if the fool is the only sane person in the room? What if modern society has become so obsessed with achievement that it has forgotten how to live? More than 2,000 years ago, a Greek philosopher named Aristotle asked a question that remains painfully relevant today. What does it mean to live well? His answer was radically different from the one offered by modern culture. He did not believe happiness came from wealth. He did not believe happiness came from fame. He did not believe happiness came from power. Instead, he argued that happiness comes from something much less glamorous and much more difficult: living virtuously, living excellently. Becoming the kind of person who flourishes regardless of circumstances. And surprisingly, when we examine SpongeBob through Aristotle's lens, we discover something uncomfortable. The foolish sponge may actually understand happiness better than most adults. Because while everyone else is busy chasing success, SpongeBob is busy living. And those two things are not always the same. The modern world has become incredibly efficient at producing comfort. Yet it seems equally efficient at producing unhappiness. Never before in human history have so many people had access to food, entertainment, transportation, medicine, information, and convenience. And yet anxiety disorders are rising, depression is rising, loneliness is rising. The strange thing is that most people don't see the trap. Because the trap doesn't look like a prison, it looks like opportunity. From childhood we are taught to move toward distant goals, get good grades, get into a good school, get a good job, buy a house, build a career. Become successful. None of these goals are inherently bad. The problem is what quietly happens in the background. We begin postponing life. We stop living in the present and start living in the future. The teenager says, "I'll be happy when I graduate." The graduate says, "I'll be happy when I get a job." The employee says, "I'll be happy when I get promoted." The manager says, "I'll be happy when I become wealthy." The wealthy person says, "I'll be happy when I finally retire." Then one day they wake up old and realize they spent their entire lives preparing to live without actually living. The philosopher Blaise Pascal once wrote that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Perhaps that sounds absurd, but look around. The average person reaches for a phone within minutes of boredom. Silence has become unbearable, stillness feels threatening. We need constant stimulation because we are terrified of confronting ourselves. We scroll, we binge-watch, we consume, we distract. And all the while a quiet question lurks beneath the noise: what if none of this is making me happy? This is exactly what we see in Bikini Bottom. Mr. Krabs cannot stop chasing money. But money never satisfies him. The moment he gains more, he wants even more. His hunger has no finish line. Plankton believes happiness lies in success. If he could only steal the Krabby Patty formula, everything would finally be perfect, but year after year he fails. And even if he succeeded, would he really become happy? Or would a new obsession simply replace the old one? Then there is Squidward. Perhaps the most realistic character in the entire show. Unlike SpongeBob, Squidward sees all the flaws of the world. He sees mediocrity, he sees stupidity, he sees disappointment. He dreams of becoming a respected artist, a famous musician, a cultured intellectual. Yet every time recognition comes close, it slips away. And the bitterness inside him grows. Many adults are secretly Squidward. They are waiting for the world to validate them, to finally say, "You matter, you are important, you are special." The problem is that validation is addictive. No amount is ever enough. One compliment creates the need for another. One achievement creates the need for a bigger one. One audience creates the need for a larger audience. This is why so many people reach goals they once considered impossible and still feel empty. The goal was never the problem. The belief attached to the goal was. They believed happiness was hiding behind it. It wasn't. And so they continue searching. Like thirsty people drinking seawater. The more they consume, the thirstier they become. This is where SpongeBob becomes so uncomfortable to watch. Because he exposes a possibility most people don't want to consider. Maybe happiness was never missing, maybe our attention was. Maybe we became so obsessed with extraordinary experiences that we lost the ability to enjoy ordinary ones. Maybe we have been searching for treasure while standing on it the entire time. If SpongeBob lived in the real world, many people would probably look down on him, let's be honest. Parents would compare their children to doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs and engineers, not to a fry cook. Career coaches would tell him to aim higher. Self-help gurus would encourage him to maximize his potential. Social media would probably label him unsuccessful. And yet SpongeBob possesses something most successful people desperately want. He genuinely enjoys being alive. That sounds simple, it isn't. In fact, it may be one of the rarest achievements in the modern world. Notice how SpongeBob approaches work. He does not constantly dream about another job. He does not spend his days fantasizing about escape. He is not counting the hours until retirement. He loves making Krabby Patties. Not because the job is prestigious, not because it pays well. Not because people admire him, he simply enjoys doing it. This idea sounds almost offensive to modern ears. Because we have become convinced that happiness requires extraordinary circumstances, but Aristotle would disagree. For Aristotle, excellence matters more than status. A person performing a humble task excellently may be living better than a powerful person performing a prestigious task poorly. That is a difficult truth because it removes our favorite excuse. Many people secretly believe, if only my circumstances changed, I would finally become happy. Maybe, but maybe not. Because circumstances do not automatically change character. A miserable person can become rich and remain miserable. An anxious person can become famous and remain anxious. An insecure person can become powerful and remain insecure. The external world changes. The internal world remains the same. SpongeBob understands something many adults forget. Life is happening right now, not 5 years from now, not after the promotion. Not after the mortgage is paid. Not after everyone finally recognizes your worth. Right now, this morning, this conversation, this meal, this walk. This ordinary Tuesday that seems so forgettable. Most people sacrifice today's happiness for tomorrow's possibility. SpongeBob does the opposite. He extracts joy from what already exists. He can spend hours chasing jellyfish, playing with bubbles, using an empty cardboard box. By adult standards, these activities seem ridiculous. Yet perhaps the ridiculous thing is our inability to enjoy simple pleasures anymore. We have trained ourselves to need increasingly powerful stimulation. The ordinary no longer satisfies us. A sunset competes with smartphones. Friendship competes with social media. Reality competes with endless entertainment, and reality usually loses. SpongeBob's greatest strength is not intelligence, it is attention. He pays attention to life, to friends, to work, to small moments, to simple joys. That is why he experiences richness where others experience boredom. A cynical person looks at SpongeBob and sees stupidity. A philosopher looks at SpongeBob and sees wisdom disguised as stupidity. Because beneath the laughter lies a profound truth. Life does not become meaningful because extraordinary things happen. Life becomes meaningful because we learn how to relate to ordinary things. The tragedy of modern life is not that people suffer. Human beings have always suffered. The tragedy is that many people become incapable of noticing what is already good. They become blind to friendship, blind to gratitude, blind to beauty, blind to simple pleasures. Blind to the miracle of being alive at all. And so they spend decades chasing happiness, while walking directly past it every single day. Perhaps that is why SpongeBob remains so strangely compelling after all these years. He reminds us of something we once knew as children. Something most adults have forgotten. That joy is not always found in achievement. Sometimes it is found in attention, not in possessing more, but in appreciating more, not in becoming someone else, but in fully inhabiting the life you already have. And maybe that is why the fool seems happier than everyone else. Because while the rest of Bikini Bottom is busy chasing happiness, SpongeBob is too busy living it. One of the biggest misunderstandings people have about happiness is that they think happiness belongs to people who always feel good. Aristotle never believed that. And SpongeBob is not happy because he is permanently cheerful. He is happy because, most of the time, he manages to stay balanced. This idea sits at the heart of Aristotle's ethics, the golden mean, the middle path. The place between excess and deficiency. Modern culture hates this idea. Everything today pushes us toward extremes: work harder, earn more, consume more, express more, feel more, become more. The message is always the same: more is better. But Aristotle would ask a simple question: better for what? Take ambition. Most people assume ambition is automatically good. But ambition has two ugly cousins. Too little ambition becomes laziness. Too much ambition becomes obsession. Both destroy peace. The lazy person wastes life. The obsessed person sacrifices life. One never moves, the other never stops. Neither knows how to live. Look around. How many people are destroying themselves chasing goals they no longer even enjoy? The entrepreneur who hasn't slept properly in years. The influencer checking statistics every 10 minutes. The executive missing his children's childhood because another promotion is waiting. Society applauds these people. Aristotle might pity them. Because a life consumed by obsession is still a life out of balance, SpongeBob is ambitious, but in a strange way. He wants to make the best Krabby Patty possible. He wants to improve. He wants to do good work. Yet he does not sacrifice everything else for achievement. He still has friends, still laughs, still plays, still enjoys being alive. That balance matters. The same principle applies to kindness. People often think kindness means saying yes to everyone, but that isn't kindness. That is weakness disguised as virtue. SpongeBob learns this lesson the hard way with Squidward. At first he helps, then he serves, then he sacrifices. Then he allows himself to be exploited. Eventually he realizes something important. A person without boundaries cannot remain kind for very long. Sooner or later resentment appears. Many people spend years learning this painful lesson. They become everyone's helper, everyone's rescuer, everyone's emotional support system, until one day they collapse from exhaustion. And then they wonder why nobody helps them. The answer is uncomfortable. Because they trained everyone around them to take without giving. Virtue without limits becomes self-destruction. Even patience can become weakness. Even generosity can become foolishness. Even courage can become recklessness. Everything beautiful can become ugly when pushed too far. This is one of the reasons modern life feels so unstable. We no longer value moderation. We worship extremes, extreme productivity, extreme success, extreme wealth, extreme opinions, extreme lifestyles. And then we wonder why so many people are exhausted. Perhaps because human beings were never designed to live at maximum intensity all the time. Perhaps flourishing requires rhythm, balance, limits. The wisdom to know when enough is enough. SpongeBob is not perfect, but he repeatedly returns to balance. And perhaps that is what wisdom actually looks like, not perfection but correction. There is a scene in SpongeBob where everything goes wrong. The perfect day he imagined falls apart piece by piece. His plans fail, his expectations collapse, his hopes are disappointed. Many people know this feeling. You plan your future, life laughs, you make a 5-year plan, reality tears it apart. You imagine a perfect relationship, it ends. You imagine financial security, a crisis arrives. You imagine certainty, life delivers chaos. This is one of the hardest truths about existence. You cannot fully control what happens to you. The Stoics understood this, Buddhists understood this, Aristotle understood this. And eventually SpongeBob understands it too. The best day ever is not the day when everything goes according to plan. It is the day shared with people you love. This sounds simple. But simplicity often hides depth. Because friendship has become strangely undervalued. People sacrifice friendships for careers, for status, for opportunities, for geographical mobility, for personal advancement. Then they wake up successful and alone. Modern society talks endlessly about networking. Networking is not friendship. Networking asks, what can you do for me? Friendship asks, how are you? Networking disappears when usefulness disappears. Friendship remains. At least genuine friendship does. Aristotle considered friendship one of the highest goods in life. Not because it helps us achieve things, but because it helps us become fully human. We discover ourselves through relationships. We suffer together, laugh together, grow together. No amount of money can replace that. And yet many people spend years neglecting the very relationships that make life worth living. One day a person realizes they have built an impressive career, a beautiful house, a strong financial portfolio, and nobody meaningful to share it with. At that moment success begins to feel strangely hollow. SpongeBob never makes this mistake. His achievements are secondary. His relationships are primary. Patrick matters, Gary matters, Sandy matters, even Squidward matters. And because of this, SpongeBob possesses a form of wealth invisible to society, the wealth of connection, the wealth of belonging. The wealth of knowing that your existence matters to somebody else. Few things contribute more to happiness. And few things are more neglected in the modern world. Many people secretly believe adulthood requires cynicism. Children are enthusiastic, adults are realistic. At least that is what we tell ourselves. But sometimes realism is merely disappointment wearing a sophisticated mask. The older people become, the more afraid they often appear, afraid of looking foolish, afraid of excitement, afraid of hope. Afraid of caring too much, they learn to protect themselves through irony, sarcasm, detachment. Nothing hurts if nothing matters, or so they think. But this protection comes at a cost. The cost is aliveness. SpongeBob never becomes cynical, not because he is ignorant, not because he is stupid, but because he refuses to surrender his capacity for wonder. That takes courage. Far more courage than cynicism. Anyone can complain, anyone can criticize. Anyone can explain why things won't work. The world is full of experts in negativity. Very few people have the courage to remain open, to remain hopeful, to remain grateful, to remain enthusiastic despite repeated disappointment. SpongeBob fails constantly. People mock him, manipulate him, misunderstand him. Yet he continues showing up, smiling, trying again, believing in people, believing in life. This is not weakness, it is resilience. The ability to suffer without becoming bitter. Perhaps that is one of the highest forms of strength. At the beginning of this essay, we met a man who believed happiness was waiting somewhere in the future. Perhaps now we can see the deeper problem: the future never arrives. When tomorrow comes, it becomes today. And if you do not know how to live today, tomorrow will not save you. This is the secret hidden beneath SpongeBob's ridiculous smile. He does not postpone life, he lives it. Right now, not perfectly, not flawlessly, but fully. He enjoys simple things because he pays attention to them. He values friendship because he understands its importance. He works hard because excellence itself is rewarding. He remains optimistic because bitterness solves nothing. And he keeps moving because every day offers another opportunity to participate in life. Meanwhile, many people continue chasing happiness the way a donkey chases a carrot tied to a stick. Always moving, never arriving, always hoping, never living. The cruel irony is that happiness often appears when the chase ends. When we stop treating life as a problem to solve. When we stop measuring our worth against other people. When we stop demanding perfection from ourselves and the world. When we finally notice what has been in front of us all along: a friend, a conversation, a meal, a sunset, meaningful work, a quiet evening. The ordinary miracles that make up an ordinary life. Perhaps Aristotle was right. Perhaps happiness is not something we possess. Perhaps it is something we practice. And perhaps the yellow sponge living in a pineapple understands a truth that many intelligent adults spend their entire lives missing. The purpose of life is not to become impressive. The purpose of life is to become fully alive. And those are not always the same thing. The world will continue worshipping money, status, power, recognition. The race will continue. Most people will keep running. But every now and then, if we are lucky, we encounter a fool who reminds us of what truly matters. A fool who laughs, a fool who loves. A fool who enjoys an ordinary day. A fool who somehow understands life better than the experts. And maybe the greatest joke hidden inside SpongeBob SquarePants is this: the fool was never SpongeBob. The fool might be the rest of us.